Let me ask you that. I've never spoken to a Holocaust survivor. How did that impact your mom?
My mom was always struck me as we like to think of our mothers as angels, as beyond. My mother was. She lived to be 94 years old. She saw her whole family destroyed in front of her. Her mother, they took the oldest and sent him, to the
Hmm.
showers to be incinerated. They dropped gas canisters naked.
Mm.
And my mother's mother, my grandmother, who I never met, took the hand of her mother. She would not let her go to her death alone. She walked with her, even though she didn't have to. Might have been a matter of time where
Right.
the next age group, and about the only thing I could get out of my mother was she took my mother's hand, her daughter at 14, and said in Hungarian, I speak Hungarian, live. Like, survive no matter what you do. And that's what my mother, I never met any of my grandparents or anything. We didn't. Half, one out of every two Jews that lived in the 20th century were incinerated in a matter of about 4 or 5 years. Unheard of in history. By the way, it's not often talked about, but 2 million Catholics were incinerated. Political prisoners, gays, the Romani, who were like the gypsies of Europe, anybody that the Nazis perceived as subhuman or people they didn't like. They just wiped them out and then tried to hide it when the Allies came, especially when the Americans came, by trying to kill as many as possible, not leave any. And by the way, the people, the wives and the children, there were schools and everything, right outside the concentration camps. And the people that lived there went to school, restaurants and everything, had normal lives. The children would play outside, never mind the dust and the particles that were coming down from the incineration camps. And astonishingly, they kept saying when they were put on trial, the wives and sisters and daughters of these guards, these Nazis, we didn't know that. We didn't know what was going on, despite the screams and the
Really?
dust from the bodies that were falling. Yeah.
And did your mom survive as a result of the war being over and her being released?
If you've never seen a movie called Sophie's Choice,
Yeah.
you should, because that's almost exactly what happened to my mother.
Really?
My mother was at a very young age interested in fashion and everything, so she went to what's called a friseur like hair, makeup, and stuff like that. So she went to school for that. And my mother never had a number. All the Jews or anybody in concentration camps had a number tattooed. So they kept, Germans were really good, name, number, where you're from and all that. And the call went out. My mother didn't talk about this much, but this much I know. The call went out that the commandant's wife wanted to know if anybody in the camps knew about hair and makeup. She wanted somebody to do that. And so they brought a few young women. She didn't want a man. Young women there. And my mother was at the end of the line, and she noticed that the commandant says, "Sprechen Sie Deutsch?" Ich kann sprechen. I speak German well enough. "Sprechen Sie Deutsch? Können Sie sprechen?" And the first one said, "Ja, ich kann sprechen ein bisschen Deutsch." Okay, back to the camps. So my mother instinctively, I think, understood that that didn't work, that the concentration camp victims, if it looked like they could speak German, they were sent back. So my mother, she could understand German. My mother played dumb. That's why she was picked. And when you think back on it now, it made sense, because she, the wife and the commandant, the Nazi, didn't want anybody who could understand German for anything to get back to anybody.
Right.
So my mother played dumb, did the commandant's hair and makeup at 14 years of age. And when they threw food out, she survived on the garbage. and she'd take back half a slice of bread or something and hide it, because if the rest of the folks in the camps found out about it, you would get killed for that piece of bread.
Really?
Yeah, they would. Everybody was starving.
You know, it's amazing, Gene, when I hear things like this, and there are people around that deny that the Holocaust even happened. I don't even understand that. You know.
I don't know. A few days ago we had an event that brought together different cultures, and sitting next to me was a very famous basketball player, and we were talking, exchanging, a really swell guy and everything. And he came out publicly and said that he can't be fooled. The earth is flat. He's been on a plane, and when he looks outside the window, the earth looks flat. The Flat Earth Society exists, it's getting bigger, and there are Holocaust deniers who say it never happened.